topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the host and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Hello and welcome. I'm Bill Martinez. Good to have you with us here on Bill Martinez Live. We're going to talk American law versus globalist barbarism. And, it's going to be a bit of an opportunity here to, again, review the meaning of words and where we are today and how the language has influenced our perspective and really distorted so much of what's going on in the body politic today. And Anton Chaitkin, I tell you, he's been such a breath of fresh air for me, having been on our daily show on several occasions. And I had to have him on this show to where we could have a little bit more time to go into detail. Anton is a historian and author of two books, actually more books than that, but two in particular that we're going to focus on, titled Who We Are, America's Fight for Universal Progress, from Franklin to Kennedy, volumes 1 and 2, which takes us from the early years back in the 1700s, and then picks up from 1830 to 1890. It is America's Fight for Universal Progress from Franklin to Kennedy. That's volume 1, the 1750s to 1850s. And boy, I'll tell you, if you have any desire to understand what's going on, in our country today, you must look at history, because we just didn't happen here. I mean, this has all been a progressive evolution, I might say, on where we find ourselves today, and so ununited. When initially we got together, and we seemed that a distinct majority of people were on board to move us in a direction of unity. But right now, the battle rages. So, Anton Chaitkin, I want to bring you on right now. And ladies and gentlemen, welcome Anton Chaitkin, the historian and author that I've been bragging about. And I tell you, it's such an honor and pleasure to have you on the show here, Anton.
Thank you so much, Bill. It's good to be here.
Well, and you have, quite the history. Not only are you an author, your father, you come from, a legacy, considering, your father, a New York attorney who fought in courts to break Wall Street and London's sponsorship of Adolf Hitler's dictatorship in Germany. Yes, you heard that right. Many of the lawsuits were against international Nazi interests managed by Prescott Bush, the father and grandfather of the two Bush presidents. And of course, a book that you wrote about George Bush Sr., the unauthorized biography, which was probably the only serious Bush Sr. book, which helped defeat Bush's 1992 reelection attempt, right?
It did. It's too bad what happened with the next president. Turned out to be Bill Clinton. But the problem we're facing with the Bush family and with the bank they worked for, the Harriman Bank and Morgan and all those New York and their affiliated London mother banks, is that they represent a faction that was opposed to the American Revolution. These are Americans or people in London during the time of our revolution. And these are Americans who stayed here, even though they were opposed to the country. They were in Boston or they were in South Carolina, places like that. These are the Tories. And this faction are the imperial faction. They were the slave owners and others. And they are the ones that have always pushed for foreign wars which would be opposed to the interest of the country, like the invasion of Mexico, for example, or the invasion of the Philippines. They were not on the side of the Union. And these are the wars. But let's look at the real heart of this issue, and that is the ability of the United States to take its place in the world as a great manufacturing power with science and high skills for its population, and with a whole large population that was all on board, as you said, behind national purposes. You need strong borders for that, but that's not the real issue. Is the kind of a nation that you're building that's capable of having tremendous manufacturing power and science power, later on the space program, things like that. The other faction, the imperial faction, the British Empire, have always opposed this kind of civilization. And now that the world is moving fast towards every country either being an advanced country or having the capability of becoming an advanced and developed country, these horrifying characters in the globalist establishment, who are the enemies of our country, they are moving for wars and other measures of chaos that will, in their interest, in their hope, will destroy the present civilization as we know it. They do not agree with advanced industrial civilization. They want to go back to a chaotic and weakened state for mankind and a smaller population.
Well, it's kind of a different form of slavery, is it not? I mean, it's kind of one size fits all type of governance.
Yeah, that's what they want, but they do not. So on our side, the people that developed our country, as I've shown in the histories, the new history of the country first two volumes, third volume I'm going to be working on now, 20th century. The people who developed our country and its power were nationalists. And they were also looking for universal progress. That means for all mankind. They helped other countries like Japan, Germany, Russia. They tried to help China. They tried to help Mexico. Later on, they were in the 20th century. We're looking to help Iran and other countries like that.
Right.
And so the issue is our country and other aspiring upward rising countries, as we rose, have to work together against this imperial power, this globalism.
Right.
And so this is the issue now before us. If we allow these globalists now to put us back on the road to nuclear war, as we were going under Biden, we were headed for nuclear war with Russia, but also for nuclear war with Iran and nuclear war with China. All of those things were being pushed by the globalists running the government when Biden was president.
You know,
and when Trump is president, and he's not resisting them like he should.
Yeah, well, they thought, and when Trump said, that Joe Biden was taking us to World War III, they thought that Trump was being hyperbolic, but I don't think they realized, well, the masses didn't realize how close we were.
That's right. And his challenge to the globalist establishment in his campaign, not by what he did, but what he said and how he rallied people, his challenge was on two counts. The first count was stop these wars, shut them down. Shut down Israel's war against its neighbors. That's insane. That's going to lead to World War III too. Shut down the attempt to have a nuclear war with China. Where does that lead? That's crazy. The other thing that Trump said was we're going to use tariffs to interfere with trade in our favor to build up our manufacturing. Now, you can't just do it with tariffs, but tariffs are historically proven instrument for nationalists to build up manufacturing, along with infrastructure federal government, and so forth. The problem with the way Trump was able to deal with these things when he became president is that he never went right before the public and said, we need a decisive break with the globalist system. Let me tell you who the enemy is. Let me tell you about the offshore banking system. Let me tell you who really controls the drug cartels in Mexico. And it's not some cheap gangster in Mexico.
Right.
It's international banks. Let me tell you,
or the deep state, Anton, because we hear more about the deep state than we hear about this globalist dynamic that you're presenting.
the deep state usually refers to people within our government, in Justice Department or other agencies, or intelligence agencies, who are not elected and who carry out, aims which are opposed to our national interest, but including assassinating our presidents.
Right.
But this is a part of a larger clique, a transatlantic clique, especially with this so-called special relationship with England. How did we get into that? By abandoning our independence, especially when Teddy Roosevelt became president. He was not the hero that the party leaderships make him out to be. Teddy Roosevelt said, we need to have English-speaking peoples rule the world in an empire. Now, what does that really mean? It means cancel the Declaration of Independence. It means we don't need to go west and build up family farms and manufacturing in the Western states. All we need to do is build a big navy and go beat up on some countries overseas. And we can let the British Empire give us the strategy for the world. And what's that strategy? Constant war.
Exactly.
World War I to begin with. Then you devise other means of crushing Germany and Russia. First of all, World War I gives you communism. Yay, that's a new enemy. Isn't that wonderful? No, it's not wonderful. Then you build up Hitler like these guys did on Wall Street in London. And then that gives you another world war.
And that's Bush.
That's wonderful. No, it's not wonderful.
Yeah, and that's Bush building up Hitler too, right?
It was that Bush family. Mm-hmm. So when our people, our globalists, not our people, gave hired Osama bin Laden to fight communism in Afghanistan in 1979, when our people under Reagan, it wasn't Reagan doing it, was Bush and Ollie North and people like that in the Reagan administration, when they gave arms to the mullahs in Iran and got money from that to so-called fight communism in Central America. What was the result of those adventures? Was it stability and American interests? No, it was calculated to result in chaos and anti-American sentiment throughout the world. That was the purpose of it.
Right.
Well, so if you want to solve these problems, you have to say to yourself, do we really believe in the values of the United States and Western civilization? First of all, monotheism. What does that mean? It means, first of all, that God created all men. And so therefore, we are all of one blood in the world. Mm-hmm. Human species is completely different from the animals. We're all one blood. So therefore, we have the same interests as our brothers in every other country.
We should have.
The way that you are going to be fooled as a patriot, the way the globalists will fool you into the trap of war, is by having you say, I will be better off than some other country in which we will try to keep them down while we get resources or while we have power. The New York Times in an article a couple of days ago refers to the American empire that's being challenged by Iran, Russia, and China. We're not an empire. If we are, we're not. We don't exist as a nation.
Right.
We are going to exist as a nation in the future if we build up our power to invent, to discover, to go into the deep space program, to do nuclear power, to do great dams, to do modern steel mills with real high temperature processes. And this is our future, along with other countries in the world. There's no reason we can't be friends with Iran, with China, with Russia, with Egypt, with Brazil, all of these countries. We have to build up our power. Mm-hmm. And that is the secret. The secret here is that the globalists are the ones that took down the advanced manufacturing capabilities, the advanced power in the US, Britain, and Germany.
Right.
And while they hollowed them out, they set up this offshore criminal banking system and to be parasites against us all, and mm-hmm. made rules that say that the US will only be able to have any influence by making war on other countries, exactly. Instead of being the problem solvers as we used to be, and inventors.
How do we decouple ourselves from that, Anton?
The first step is that people have to say that they want to survive. Right now, we're headed towards nuclear war again. Mm-hmm. And so we have to make a decisive break with globalism. That means you have to understand what we need. What do we need? What kind of a working force do we need in the United States? Think about it.
I think first we got to understand the enemy. We have to understand.
No. The enemy is globalist. You can define it. The intelligence agencies. Israel is part of that whole thing with Britain and with corrupted elements in our intelligence sector. But the first thing is to understand what are our real needs. Mm-hmm. We need to have a massive increase in manufacturing. We need state-of-the-art infrastructure. We need high-speed, modern transportation. We're going to have to build nuclear power plants across our country. What kind of workforce do we need? They need to be literate. They need to be optimistic. Yes. They need to be large and growing. That means we have to decide that there was a terrible mistake made when we took the advanced heavy industry down in the 1970s and 80s. That was a terrible thing to do to our country.
Right. And to our people. And the deal is when you go back, let's rewind to the very beginning that you introduced this whole topic, is that, we broke away from America, broke away from the European idea. And all of a sudden we had all these people that had this pent up energy. And I think we got a little bit of a taste of it here recently after Barack Obama. Barack Obama had really put a lid on the productivity of America at large. When Donald Trump came in, he unleashed it. He took the lid off, and look what happened. Our productivity went through the roof. Barack Obama was predicting you couldn't do, you're not going to do better than 2% GDP. Trump said, hey, I think we could do 4 or 5%. And Obama laughed at him. He just didn't believe it. But to your point, we've got all this brilliance and potential within America, 350 million Americans. If we're unleashed, boy, I'll tell you, we are a force to contend with, and a force not to contend with others in an adversarial manner. I agree with you, but in a way that will help others, and all in the name of God, who created this popcorn stand to begin with.
Let me see if we can define the problem between in the terms of the United States and Mexico.
Okay.
All right. In the late 1970s, early 1980s, there was a president of Mexico, Jose Lopez Portillo, Portillo. Mm-hmm. He proposed that Mexico should build nuclear power plants, and he was active on that. He proposed that they should have scientific modern manufacturing and scientific agriculture with tractors, the whole thing, industrialize, have a high wage economy, use their oil along with Venezuela, which then was not controlled by leftists.
Right.
The two countries would help to develop the other countries of Latin America. And so this is before we had a major drug culture in the United States. So what happened? The United States was taken down after the murder of Kennedy, right? Taken down by these globalist strategy, and Mexico was prevented from industrializing the way that they wanted to, and they should have. The globalist strategy was enunciated by Henry Kissinger. He said flat out, what did he say? We do not want a Japan south of the border. Why not? Would that be bad for us to have a high wage, modern country down there? If they're industrialized and the people have a tremendous stake in building a future because they're getting a good living, they want to stay in their country. They don't need to swarm across the border in desperation to try to find a better life.
Right.
In that case, who is going to be cowing and bowing down to the drug cartels? We are not. If we could be rebuilt in the right way, then our people would not be drug addicted as they became after we lost our industrial base. Both countries are going to sink or swim together on the basis of modern high wage industry. So there was a terrible deal that was proposed by the Rhino Republicans and was put through by Bill Clinton, called NAFTA. What was that? Free trade, cheap labor. We're going to get cheap labor out of Mexico, take down the border, and make sure that nobody makes a good living. Who does that benefit? I'll tell you who it actually benefited. It benefited the largest banks in the United States and Britain. These are basically British banks, like the HSBC bank, that control the drug cartels, that launder their money. That's who benefited. And they also laundered money for the terrorists in the Middle East. Osama bin Laden, Al-Qaeda. Why? What is their objective? As I said to begin this, they are looking to take down the kind of industrial civilization that has been building up since about the 1780s, at the time of the American Revolution, when we had the steam engine and so forth. That helped the British Empire for a while, but they saw that they could not really prevent the rest of the world from becoming powerful modern countries, and they don't want that. So they said, we would rather have the end of modern civilization. That's what they're aiming at, instead, which includes drug addiction. Look at the movies that they put out, the dystopia. All you see in these movies in the future, what is it going to be in the future? People living after a nuclear war or some other terrible apocalypse. Why?
Exactly.
Why does it have to be like that? That's what our children are being taught, that you have no possibility of having a modern future where all the nations are cooperating to do exciting projects where you make money and you do good business and have high skills. That's a much better world, a much more stable world. The enemy globalists do not want stability.
Right.
And that should be our aim. The only way you get stability is by having progress.
Exactly.
But you have to stay. We're determined that we will survive. And the only way to survive is to have a decisive break with these globalists. First of all, by saying anybody that's proposing going back to war with Russia and having Israel keep up its wars against Iran and us going to war with China, anybody who proposes that is a snake who is posing as some sort of a conservative. These are the globalist enemies of ourselves and mankind.
How do we handle, let's say it's not us, but it's Donald Trump and his team, handle Ukraine, Russia right now?
Listen to what they're saying. The Russians are, what is their objective? They said that we will not allow ourselves to be surrounded by NATO. We want to have a stability in this region. Why did the Russians go into Syria with their troops? They did that before they went into Ukraine.
Right.
They went in there because the British, then reinforced by the United States, were attacking one country after another. Remember the Iraq, Afghanistan, Libya, and other countries, bombing them, overthrowing and murdering the leaders. We would call them terrible dictators.
Right.
What was the purpose of that? It was marching close to the Russian border. And the Russians said, well, obviously the next step there is to overthrow the government of Russia.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we used to have people talking about doing that when they had communism. What's the excuse for it now? Think about what the real reason for this is. Why should we have a war with Russia? Are they really our enemy? No. Who says that they're our enemy?
Mm-hmm.
Who says that any of these countries should be our enemy? You can be a rival in certain ways with countries, but you can say that we will do well in this rivalry by building up our skills and our power. That's the way you handle these things, right?
Exactly. Well, and the thing is that, I mean, we have violated so many agreements. I say we, the United States, and our policies. I mean, we had an agreement with Ukraine. They had to surrender their nuclear weapons. And we're told that, by Bill Clinton, that we would protect them with a promise. And look what happened.
Why don't we just say now that we want to guarantee the security of both Russia and Ukraine, and forbid any attack from either side, and then do the same thing between Israel and the neighbors. You have to shut this thing down in Israel.
Exactly.
Look, the wars between Israel and the neighbors, what is that really about? If an American, I'm going to say something that's pretty tough here. If an American or a British person says that Bibi Netanyahu or some Israeli settler who is carrying out massacres, if an American says that is a representative of the Jewish faith, to me that is anti-Semitism right there, because the Jewish people helped to bring monotheism to our world. And in monotheism, all men are blood brothers. Right. And so therefore, if you defy God by saying that really didn't happen, there is no God of that sort, that is not you're slandering the Jews, and that's what Bibi Netanyahu is doing. And the power behind Israel doing the wrong thing is the Anglo-Americans. And I don't mean America, because is this in America's interest? No. Is it in anybody's interest in that region? No. Who's benefiting from it? Only those who seek to take down civilization. There's no end point. You go to war with Iran, what's the end point of that war?
Yeah, but how can you calm Iran down when they're shouting, death to Israel, death to America?
Okay, let's look back at the American Indians when they said death to the white man. Mm-hmm. What was going on? People in our country were going into settled Indian villages. I'm talking about agricultural villages. Mm-hmm. And carrying out a massacre and stealing the land. Did we really need that land to settle the West? No, there's vast spaces that we never occupied.
Right.
So we broke one treaty after another with the Indians. Was it necessary for us to build up our power and get a great population that overwhelmed the Indians? Yes, that's the way we were going to build up the power to stand up in the world. But we should have given the Indians, when we took away their way of life by having this superior technology, we should have given them the helping hand to say, here's how you could join us and thrive in our technological civilization. we still owe it to them to do that. They're communities. So a wise person does not react when somebody is shouting something in hostility or despair. A wise person goes back to what we did at a better time, when we had a better philosophy, when we were encouraging Iran to take over their own resources, when we were encouraging Mexico to do the same, take over their oil away from foreign oil companies. Is that communistic? No, it's nationalism.
Mm-hmm.
You know, what we criticized the communists for under the Soviets was by going into like East Germany and taking their machines and taking them back to Russia. That's an empire. That's not some ideal of leftism. It's
right.
just stealing. So when every country has the right and really the duty to its own citizens to advance. If we stand up for that right in Iran and don't say, well, we're going to bomb you until you give up so-and-so, give up having nuclear science. We were the ones who started nuclear science in Iran. Eisenhower's Atoms for Peace program. Kennedy organized the whole International Atomic Energy Agency to carry out joint projects of nuclear power plants for desalinating water, among other things.
Right.
And to also have the kind of agreements to say we don't want them to get the nuclear bombs. The public has been brainwashed against nuclear power, thinking that if you have nuclear power and nuclear science, it automatically means a nuclear bomb. And
right, nuclear war.
Yep. They say the same thing against oil and coal, that you can't have intensive energy of any kind without it destroying the world. Now it's global warming, it's something else, right? But this is an attack against industrial civilization. We have the same interests as the nation of Iran. Don't talk about the mullahs. Don't talk about some dictator in some country. You have to concentrate on the needs and the underlying interests of that nation as a nation. That way you can deal with all the countries. Can you name a country that has a true republic and democracy? What country has that now in the world?
Well, we're the closest thing to it.
Well, we might be if we weren't under globalist rule. If we weren't having who runs our intelligence agency? Who runs the media? It's all an international clique. Who runs the academia? Who runs our education? Right? Who's putting us in these wars? That's not legal. That's not American law. That's not the Constitution. What about the European countries? They're under the dictatorship of the European Union, and people hate it. There are millions of people in Europe, tens of millions in Americans, and proud people all over the world who are against these wars and are restive against the rule of the globalists and believe in national sovereignty. That's what we have to address. We have to have the courage to have a decisive break with globalism.
And going back to what you were saying earlier, Anton, and you're right, is that the vision, the clear vision of this potential concept, this idea, and I just say, we realized it early on. We did with the American dream and the idea that we first started with, but then we lost our way.
Idea of improvement. And the idea, if the population, we should have an educational system that moves people and inspires people to cheer for man's increased control over nature, to increase man's power. Right now, they're being taught the opposite, that we should take down all the dams, that we should blow up the factories, that we should go to war with any country that tries to increase its power to produce and to take a high station in the world. That's wrong. That's a completely wrong idea. That's imperialism. And the clear record of our country's history is that when we defied the empire and built up our manufacturing and our great power to produce in many ways, and with science, that this was done by people of goodwill who were nationalists. And by nationalists, I don't mean that they were wanted to destroy some other country. Hitler was not a nationalist; he's an imperialist.
Right.
Right. So you can say that you're a nationalist only if you're following in the tradition of the first Republican president, Abraham Lincoln, who wanted the other countries to thrive and become powerful by our side so that we could all resist the arrogance of the British Empire.
Yeah. How could George Washington not see, from this meager military assemblage of farmers and that, what we were able to accomplish and going forward, and how could he not see how that would transfer to other nations if they themselves were blessed with the opportunity to take self-responsibility?
That's the idea. That's the city on the hill. It's not imposing our way of life on somebody. That's what the Pilgrims were talking about. And there were good people in Virginia too. Spotswood, Governor Spotswood, who had the Knights of the Golden Horseshoe. And that was a group of men that wanted to have Western settlement and good relations with the Indians.
Yes.
The British tried to put the races against each other at all times. And they try to put nations and religions against each other now, and races. That's the woke nonsense.
You mentioned these bruises that we've had along our way in our history that need to be reconciled, whether it's with the Indians or slavery and that sort of thing, where we stepped out of those holy rights and morality that were God-given. That when we followed God's law, we did the right thing. We did right by each other. I mean, we had agreements, as you said, with the Indians. We broke our promises. With Black Americans, we did. And I'm not saying we should live forever, with that, but we need to reconcile it and move forward. And I think in a lot of ways we have, but there's still some people that want to continue to scratch that itch and create this adversarial perception, right?
You can really learn something that's important for us now by looking at what was called Reconstruction, the period after the Civil War. And there were the ones who wanted to really make sure that the freed Black people got their rights were the nationalists based in Philadelphia. And what they wanted to do was to change the South in the interest of the Southern people, Black and white, by building industry and using the different kinds of resources in the South, natural resources like coal and iron and water power, and also to use the people of the South and make them literate, make them educated. And if you change the South and make it a modern industrial area with family farms, you sweep away the old plantation.
Exactly. And it was already done in the North, Anton, right? I mean, you had all this industrialization going on.
That's right.
North. And that's really why the North was able to win.
But what happened is that these Northeastern so-called liberal financiers, who some of them had been abolitionists before the war, but now these are the bankers in Boston and New York. These are the financiers connected to the British. They did not want to transform the South in this way. What they wanted is to continue to have cheap labor in the South. So you need to continue the plantation economy and have the Blacks be the sharecroppers or just, jail prisoners and work as virtual slaves. Is that in the interest of the white people of the South? No, it stayed backward.
Exactly.
The interest of everybody. We in America, just like in our monotheistic religion, in America, we believe in the harmony of interests between different people from different walks of life and between different countries, right? That all people will rise if you're building up the power to produce and have good civilization.
Exactly.
What does the enemy say? The enemy says that if you allow people who are on the bottom of the world, or the undeveloped, or the underclass, people in the bottom rungs of society, if you allow them to rise and get more powerful and more educated, they will want to kill you. That's what the enemy says, that so therefore you have to keep them down. But who says that also? The terroristic leftists. Right? That's their idea of class struggle. Where does that come from? It comes from the empires who hire stooges to spout some theory about the necessity of people killing each other because they have clashing interests. They don't have clashing interests. If somebody acts like a tyrant in a company, like a coal mine owner, if he acts like a tyrant and tries to smash his workforce, then yes, they have competing interests between the boss and the workers. But if you're building a modern, kind of industry with really advanced research going on and advancing wages, don't the workers in that industry have a common interest with the people building the industry? Of course they do.
Absolutely. And to hear the story here, I flash back to Egypt and what happened with the Jews, right? I mean, here they are. They're becoming prolific. They're a force unto themselves. And the Pharaoh couldn't handle it. He got threatened by it. He didn't know how to harness and maximize that human potential. And what he did, he reduced them to slavery. And what did it do? It ended up killing his own rule.
Yeah, I think, if you go back in Egyptian history, you had two factions there too. You had there was the people that are supposed to have been sun worshipers, but they're really worshiping one God, and similar to our monotheism. And they were very scientific people. They did astronomy. There's even a sections of the pyramid inside the Great Pyramid, which are tunnels for serving the interest of doing astronomy in different ways. So that you had a scientific and monotheistic element and leadership element in Egypt, and you also had people who were bent on war and revenge and destroying other cultures. And so in every part of the world, humanity has always had this kind of a contest between people that want to build up our looking up and trying to find out how God made this universe. What's it all about? How can we use it for our betterment? That's one side, versus people who say, I am going to use the weaknesses of other people, get them to work for me to put the human race under my power, or under the power of my family or my clique. Those are the two different outlooks that have always been competing, but especially within the United States. People in foreign countries don't understand this about the United States, and Americans have lost this point of reference, especially since the murders of the 1960s, where the globalists have tried to wipe out our history because it's a threat to them. This history of doing good in the world and fighting them, this imperial faction, is doomed for their control over mankind.
Well, they got to be going crazy. I mean, here we are. We're starting our 250th year anniversary. We're recounting history. Oh, this has got to just drive them nuts.
So I'd like to have, I'd like to really have an interaction with this new history of the country that I've been working on. I'd like to have an interaction with homeschoolers, in particular, with people that are interested in looking at the precise way that America rose, and see that as something that we can repeat under new circumstances and rise again.
Right.
We have to rebuild the country. It's not just a matter of, building a factory. You really have to rebuild this country.
Right. But the thing is so good about what you're saying, though, Anton, is that we did it before.
That's right.
Okay? It's not like we're starting like they did. I mean, they started with a clean sheet of paper and, from zero, and they were able to build it. So if we look back in history, what they were able to do, and as you mentioned, it first starts with the vision itself and understanding of what we're trying to do here, and holding to that value, which I think is pretty well stated, whether it's in our Declaration of Independence and our Constitution. Maybe there's some minor tweaks in the Constitution, but by and large, those are two pretty good documents.
Yeah, they established the idea that the law of a country and the nature of the country is based on this what we call natural law. Mm-hmm. That all men are created equal, that the rights that we have are really rights that belong to all people,
God-given,
and that we will be able to use self-government under this kind of a law to increase our status and our stature and our knowledge and our powers. And so, the real fear that people have, and a lot of people are, get depressed and demoralized and stop being activists. The real fear they have is don't the great, secret powers, the bankers, the aristocrats of the old world and the intelligence agencies, the cults that they have put together, the secret societies, don't this faction have virtual superpowers to keep control over our existence? And what I have to constantly refer people to is that the United States has several times reversed that kind of power over our society, and by the same faction, maybe slight differences at different times, but it is the same British alliance with their stooges and their partners within the United States. We have defeated them, yes, not permanently, but enough. Several times we've done this in order to make great advances. And one of the biggest times was right after the Civil War. That's in volume 2 of Who We Are, mm-hmm. when we did our huge manufacturing development.
Exactly.
And we built railroads and we perfected many industries, and Edison started the electrical industry,
right?
And had to fight Wall Street to build the first power plants all over the country, and had partners in other countries who had to fight for this as well, against that imperial power that said, no, mankind should not have electricity. People will become too ambitious. They will want to act as if they were only a little lower than the angels. That's not good. They should think of themselves as dirt. They should think of themselves as groveling peasants. Then we can control them.
Exactly.
People should not be ambitious. That's the way that this enemy wants us to think. They want people to be depressed and demoralized. They want people to be drug addicted. So
it's all about, again, it's all that same refrain, power and control. We got about a minute left here. I'm going to let you summarize. I mean, you've done such a great job on this, Anton Chaitkin. I just so appreciate you coming on. And I'm going to let you summarize and bring us home here on this deal. Go ahead.
We have a choice now, which is whether we will allow people who hate the United States and what it stands for to put us in war. Right now, they're talking about 3 different fronts, and it's the same war. Go to the intelligence agencies and go to the corrupted areas of the military. Exactly. Go to the media that's trumpeting this stuff. Russia, Iran, and China. they're not. They're not the same. It's not. They don't have some axis that we have to defeat. What we have to see is that the war itself is our problem. Mm-hmm. That the war itself is designed by these people, just same way they have done with all the other wars that we've done since, especially since the murder of Kennedy. Exactly. It's designed to destroy our civilization, to destroy America's past and America's power and influence in the world. It's designed to wreck civilization, and we cannot permit it. People who propose these wars are, in my view, the worst traitors to our country. That's the problem that we're facing right now.
Well, they want us to be less than so that they can be more than. That's the dynamic that's going on. Again, Anton Chaitkin, the historian and author of Who We Are, volumes 1 and 2, books are available. And I'll tell you, this is something that you really want to have with you. You will refer to it constantly. You'll keep it by your bedside, I'm sure, and refer to it. It is so well done. I just am so grateful for you, Anton, for coming on the show. I'm grateful for your, for your education and your knowledge, your commitment to helping this next generation avoid the mistakes that we fell and got trapped in. And there is a way out. There is hope for us, isn't there?
I believe there is. If you study the history, that we've made such beautiful advancements when we stuck to our mission.
Right.
The mission is improvement, embodied in the life, I think, of Benjamin Franklin, the happiest man on the planet, because he was involved with improving everything. And he had friends who were scientists and admirers of the Americans, the colonists who wanted to be free of the British. He had friends all over the world just by doing the right thing and by exciting investigations of electricity and different aspects of nature. That's who we are.
Exactly. Well, Anton, we got to leave it there. Thank you so much for being with us. Take care. Godspeed, my friend.
Thank you.
Our gratitude to Anton Chaitkin, as I mentioned, the historian and author of Who We Are, America's Fight for Universal Progress from Franklin to Kennedy, Volume 2, and then Who We Are, America's Fight for Universal Progress from Franklin to Kennedy, Volume 1. That takes you from 1750s to the 1850s. Well, I'll tell you, a great read and a great refresher for a time such as this. Thank you for sharing a part of your day with us. I pray that this has been beneficial to you, that it is causing you and motivating you to do a deeper dive. You know, as we say, you must own your own knowledge. And hopefully we're encouraging you to do that, because it is important that we do not surrender our intellect and be controlled by those whose interests are not consistent with our Judeo-Christian principles. God bless you. Thank you for being with us. May God bless you and keep you. May make his face shine upon you. May he be gracious unto you and give you peace. Take care.